I actually learned something about myself this week. I discovered that I really hate people, at least on my first introduction or impression. I think that's kind of natural. Last summer on Lake Michigan with my friend Leslie, in her boat, we were racing across Lake Michigan, and we were practically the only people on the lake that day. And when Leslie noticed someone far off in the distance, and she said, "Now I have to watch out for those people and see what they're doing." And I said, "Well, Leslie, those people they're far, far in the distance." And she said, "Well, I don't care." She said, "I see everyone as a potential threat." I told Leslie, I said, probably we all feel that way. And Leslie, she turned to me and said, "I'm so glad you think so." I think it's natural to see people as something of a threat and a concern. And I think that's why we have social conventions. It helps us cross the threshold of whatever we're uncomfortable with to venture out of our crummy selves and actually be welcoming to others. Welcome to Fashion Coffee Hour. I'm Stanley Smith. At Fashion Coffee Hour each week, we talk to Marcy Carmack, founder of the Real Real, and Marcy frames herself. She's not a fashion expert; she's a expert fashion stylist. And we join the conversation with others as a panel of experts on various cultural and fashion topics. Our basic thesis at Fashion Coffee Hour is that fashion brings beauty into the world, and wherever there is beauty and the avant-garde, there's culture. And wherever there's culture, people are elevated socially, economically, and spiritually. This week we were looking at people we don't like. We looked at Meghan and Harry, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And, that's where I first discovered you can really learn something from people you don't like, because as we dug a little deeper into those two, we saw that Meghan actually had some redeeming qualities and a little fashion sense, whether it was her own fashion sense or if she was good at spoofing others. She was bringing some beauty into the world, and it allowed me to appreciate something about her. Marcy shared that whenever she meets designers in person, it really helps her appreciation of what it is they're doing and all the things that they create. So I said we did learn that Meghan had a little fashion style, and that she was carrying on in the in the tradition of the British royalty as best she could in her American version of that. But some of the differences when comparing them to the Duke and Duchess of Windsor is that Harry and Meghan seem to make the worst of a pretty good situation, and compared to the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, who really made the best of a bad situation. Wallis self-described herself as not being attractive, so she had to cultivate uh, charm and conversational skills, along with a sharp wit, to make herself appealing as best she could. Meghan simply thinks she has all those traits, when in fact she's probably lacking in most of them. Wallis occupied a space between being the most despised person and the most hated person, at least woman, in her time. One of the few compliments she ever got was from Adolf Hitler. Meghan has been described as a social climber, but she reframes herself as ambitious, so that then she can paint herself as the victim. And then the Duke of Windsor, who is somewhat of a more retiring figure in all this, does have a direct link to fashion. I mean, in his time, he was noted for being pretty fashionable, but even as simple as the Windsor knot, named after the Duke of Windsor, and it isn't named in his honor. The Duke's knot essentially was a four-in-hand knot of a heavier material than usually used for commercial ties at the time, or even in our time. So the Windsor knot was created as a double knot to create that same thick triangular knot. In my time, I think the first tie I had to wear was in the seventh grade, and I didn't know how to tie a tie, so my uncle tied it for me, and I remember I kept that tie tied. I think it's still tied in my family's home, and I just kept slipping it over my head, loosening it and unloosening it all during high school. Uh, at the time, the four in hand was perfect for me because I was rather on the slender side, and my neck was so thin that I thought the big Windsor knot was just was too ridiculous looking, but I might be able to pull it off at this time. Maybe I'll give it a try again. According to the Preppy Handbook, the four-in-hand is the quintessential American jaunty look. Before the pandemic, I guess I thought I was still just a young, hip person, but now after the pandemic, I feel like we've all gotten really old really quickly. So maybe it's time for a little update. Next week, we'll be looking at Carolyn, Prince of Monaco. And I do think Marcy and I will be able to answer the question once and for all about the murder conspiracy about Princess Grace driving off the cliff. I think we'll be able to show a direct link to fashion and its involvement in her tragic end. If you would like to join us at Fashion Coffee Hour is every Monday evening at 6 p.m. Central Time on Zoom. I will include my email in the description of this video. I'll be happy to send you an invitation. And Marcy and I will look forward to seeing you very, very soon.